Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Rotation. I am Ashley, aka MiDNiTE, on board as always with IKON, and instead of Kingdom, I'm so sorry, Kingdom. F in the chat for Kingdom. He was AFK from his normal setup, had his iPad, was trying to make the podcast work this week, and just couldn't due to technical difficulties. But what a stand-in we have. We've got Coach Saintt, head coach of the Minnesota RØKKR, on board with us. Brian, first of all, how the heck are you? You haven't been on in a little bit, and I haven't talked to you that much, just here and there. So first of all, how are you? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how stoked are you to get back to LAN?
I mean, definitely a 10. It feels like a year and a half at this point, and it's a little less than that. But yeah, I mean, happy to be standing in today. It's only fitting since we're playing a stand-in our first match at the LAN. So excited to get things going.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. I mean, IKON, just to kind of go over it for people. We're going against New York Subliners at 6:30 Central on Thursday. Make sure to watch the co-stream here on the RØKKR YouTube with us. And we're going up against New York Subliners. We've been looking pretty dangerous lately, but IKON, do you feel like the people in who is playing for Asim and why? And then I'd love to get in with Saintt, what he thinks about that.
Yeah, so I'll say I feel so bad for Asim. It seems like going into this year, it wasn't quite known right away if he would end up having a spot or what kind of his story would be. And then he came into the year and he just played really well. He's been super steady for that squad. He really does a ton for New York. He's just seemed to fit into that system perfectly. And now finally, everything has come full circle and we're back to LAN and he's not able to make it. So it's unfortunate. Hopefully he's able to get that settled so that he can play in, stage 5 and then eventually towards champs. But their stand-in will be Decimate. So obviously last we saw him was with Seattle, and it was a little bit of a rocky couple weeks out there. Of course, they didn't have a ton of success. And after just a couple matches, he decided to basically just not play with that squad anymore. And that's what sent them into trying to find a fourth. And now Decimate's getting a shot again. So we'll see how everything ends up playing out. I feel like if they were at full strength, they would absolutely be a formidable opponent throughout this stage 4 major. And now everything's up in the air. So Brian, I feel for you because you probably, once you got this matchup, you probably put a ton of time, a ton of hours into getting prepared for that squad. And now you don't really have any film to go off of. You just kind of know how he plays, but it had to have changed everything you guys, or at least maybe not everything, but a bit of what you guys were prepping for going into this first match on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really go too much into it immediately once the things got settled, because I think New York's match was the last one of that day, so we didn't even know until the very last match of the day was over. And at that point, it was pretty much said immediately after, or at least there was some info going around that it was still very questionable with the team. So, I mean, I think it all got kind of foretold within, the next day, so we weren't really prepping too much. It just kind of there was a wrench in things in terms of now kind of going over stuff about that team and looking at, what maps are their strong suits, because not having ASIM changes a whole lot on that team, especially for Desi, who doesn't play really similar to him at all. So, I mean, maps that could, in theory, be their strongest maps record-wise could not be so great at them for the major. So we don't really know how to prep for that, but we kind of just have to go in playing, more so catered to our strong suits, similar to when we played LA Thieves, a few days ago, not really knowing what they're good at all.
Yeah, I was going to mention, this is now the second week in a row where the team you're about to play has a little bit of a roster shift, obviously, with LA Thieves. They bring back TJ Halley, they got Slasher, Kenny, Hook. I mean, on paper, if you're looking at that team 6 months ago, you're like, geez, dude, those are day one contenders. But it just isn't shaking out for them like that this season at all. And it was such a great series. I mean, I'm sure, especially as a coach, just how many Game 5 round 11s we've all been through here at Minnesota RØKKR. It was tough, but I want to commend the team because yes, I would say there's blowout maps for each team in that series, and then some really intense maps as well. And it felt like we've so many times, whether it's this year or last year, we're always like one or two small plays on a map that could completely change the outcome of the map or the series. And it felt like in that series, we were finally on the good side of that. Like we clutched up in the moments we needed to. We win a round 11 search and destroy, which we're not terrible at that by any means, but it's always, it's almost like a coin flip at that point in the game. So I guess my question is, you mentioned like playing to your strengths going into the matchup. Was that really the focus? And then how do you think you guys have, tried to correct, or I guess I don't know how you even like coach or teach the clutch factor? Like how do you make sure you're finishing in those clutch moments instead of, it not going your way sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, we feel really good about like those 1v1 and 2v2 situations that we get into, but I feel like those are kind of rare for us at this point. I think our big issues in S&D are being able to win rounds after we get first blooded. Just seeing it in practice as well. Like we have a really good round turnover rate. When we're going out, we're getting that first blood. The rounds seem very comfortable for us. However, on the flip side, if we're getting first blooded, the rounds, just seem near impossible to win. So we've kind of been working on that in a sense of, how can we get first bloods more, and how can we put ourselves in, positions to win S&D rounds when the other team's getting the first blood, because I think that's what really separates the top S&D teams from, the ones that aren't as great. Because if you look at FaZe, I think their first blood percentages aren't even like too crazy. I don't think any of the teams are. Most teams kind of hover around the 50% range, like the very high end being a team getting first blood, like 53, 54% of the time, and then like the very low end, like 44%. So just being able to capitalize on, consistently capitalize on the rounds where we're getting first blood, and being able to turn over some more rounds where we're getting first blooded, that's kind of the main focus for us in S&D. And I feel like once we're able to get that established a little bit more, we'll definitely be strong in that game mode again, like we were earlier in the season.
Yeah, one thing, just kind of if we're talking about S&D and how you mentioned first bloods, of course, but one of the things that I've really noticed since the change with bringing Major Maniac into the fold is it just seems like he's finds himself in positions where a lot of people don't expect him to be. Like many rounds where I've been watching him, for example, if you're playing S&D on Miami, whether it's on offense or defense, it seemed like accuracy kind of had a set spot on the map. If it was on offense, he was like top apartments. If it was on defense, he was usually over in visitors. And with Mike, it seems like there's times where he's more aggressive, pushing middle of the map, rotating earlier over towards the bomb site. So does the fact that it's almost like at times he and Priest have the ability to switch, like who's the flex, who's the main AR. I know you don't want to like put people just into a role, but it seems like they're much more fluent in what both of them are trying to do since he's come into the fold. And it's been a little bit refreshing to see him, play a little bit more aggressive. And of course, you mentioned S&D, but also in like control, like he'll push mid maps and like in raid, he'll get kills mid maps. And then rather than just falling back over towards Tiki to try to play that long line of sight, he'll push forward into zigzag or into art and he'll apply pressure. And it just seems like when I watch him play, he's not afraid to be more aggressive and put pressure on rather than just trying to play his role. So it seems like just from what I've noticed the past few weeks, it's kind of altered the way that RØKKR's playing on many game modes.
Yeah, I think our control is, relatively in the same place. Our control is really good beforehand, and, it's still going to show the same. I don't remember exactly what our control record was this stage, but I want to say it was 4-1, possibly, or something like that. But I know our control is really good this stage, as it has been all season. Our hard point is definitely looking a lot better. We feel like we should have taken both against FaZe a couple days ago. So it kind of just comes down to the S&D for us at this point. I mean, we have a lot of options in that game mode. Mike's really dynamic when it comes to S&D, as you were saying before. He will pull out an SMG a lot. He won't, just be static with an AR in that game mode. So we're able to change a lot of things up. And, I feel like once we kind of find the right mix on how to play some of these rounds, especially in the earlier round, things will start really coming together and add a big layer of consistency for us.
That's the freaking plan, man. I guess one kind of question that's related to that. I would love to like hear your thoughts on how the main AR position in Call of Duty has
There's no such thing.
evolved. Yeah, it's like it's not here anymore. You know, you look at well, I mean, I think our team, you know, specifically with accuracy, you know, being moved to the bench, Major Maniac coming in. Obviously, he is an AR on the team, but you notice even other teams, I mean, not to varying levels of success, but you see like the LA Thieves of the world when they moved, you know, Slasher to the bench, and then Kenny was like the main AR, but he doesn't like they're not playing like traditional main ARs, you know, anchor the spot, hold it down, stare at the line of sight. Like, what have you noticed? And do you think is this a product of it moving to 4v4, or when did this kind of evolution from like the main AR being like the cinder block feeded dude holding it down to like making sure you're in the correct position at all times, and that's sometimes aggressive and sometimes not?
It just has to do with the map and the way the you know the maps are laid out, the way the spawn system works, and I think especially with kind of sliding the past few years and how fast and trade heavy Call of Duty has become, I think that really is what made it so, you know, there's not really as traditional roles and everyone needs to be super dynamic on the map. Because back in the past in Black Ops 2, you know, spawn like maintaining the you know the god spawn for whatever hill it was super important. And AR can post up back there, one burst, you know, anyone in their way, and at the same time, the AR couldn't be as mobile on the map because you know they had to be posted up to one burst these people, and you know if they were caught running around, an SMG player would really take advantage of that. I think now with how Call of Duty is, you know, ARs can be a lot more mobile, pull up and win those fights versus SMGs close range, and you know, alternatively, the SMGs can win those crazy long range fights versus the AR. So you can't really get caught just you know staying in one spot and trying to hard block a spawn because with how fast things move now, you actively want to flip a lot of the spawns and you know not kind of maintain this one power position for you know 45 60 seconds at a time and to kind of go and flip spawns back in the day, you know, someone could take a sneak route and kind of get you a spawn like that. It doesn't really work like that as much anymore. You really need to be pushing things together as a team and to be able to flip a lot of the time because people can't really make as many hero plays. I mean, they'll happen every now and then, but it's not as frequent.
Yeah, you know, just thinking back to like Black Ops 2, for instance, like if you had 4 players on a team, 2 would be running an SMG, but your ARs wouldn't even have the same gun really. Like your flex, quote unquote, would probably be running like a faster AN94. And then your anchor or your main AR would have like an M8 in his hands. So it's not even like those were 2 really separate play styles, but now everybody's using the same weapon per se. So it doesn't even really exist that way. And just to kind of go off of spawns, like you mentioned, this game is, and even last year with Modern Warfare, once a hill really gets contested and there's a lot going on, most of the time, that squad that was there to begin with, you're coming up off a spawn and you're not really even there anymore. Like I think of like P3 on raid. If you're pushing P3 on raid and it becomes a contested hardpoint, one team's going to spawn over by P1 and one team's going to spawn over by pool. So it's not like the team that was there first is still getting that back spawn. It becomes contested. Whoever wins out, then they end up getting and pushing out mid-map and stuff like that. So it's weird to see like how the game has really changed, because if you think of like Slum's hardpoint from Black Ops 2, if you had a lot of those back positionings,
yeah, the hills were pretty much unbreakable.
Yeah, right. You had your main AR in the back of any of those hills. You're not going to be giving that up unless you're able to like 4 push out that spawn. And now you can flip. And by that time, the hill's almost over. So it's almost not even worth it. It's interesting to see how the game has changed and how that's led to a lot of the players being more fluid and more dynamic around the map, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just comes to being able to square up with a lot more fights when, you know, in the past, some of those unfavored fights, if you were pulling up on someone on like a crazy head glitch or, you know, a god spot per se, you had to work hard to get them out of it. It usually took a lot of utility or you hitting a crazy shot, but
Perfect headshot.
Now you can just pull up and hit a slide cancel. You know, if you hit some good shots, you're probably gonna win it.
It's pretty crazy how the different like weapon classes have really like evened out with one another over time. Do you prefer it that way? Like me personally, like I love when there's like 2, 3, maybe even 4 guns at play in a different match. Like you look back at Black Ops 2, one of the god CODs of all time. The MSMC was pretty much a standard sub. You had the Burst M8, you had the AN94, and then if you wanted to get crazy on a hard point, like I did in League Play, you pull out the Scorpion and just melt people up close.
Yeah,
so
Scorpion
like,
had its moments for sure.
Yeah, it was cool. Like it was situational, and I think one of the things that I do miss about competitive Call of Duty is those situational weapons or plays. How do you view it? Do you want more weapon variety in competitive COD like that? Do you kind of like the 2 to 3 gun meta? What's kind of like your viewpoint of it?
I don't think it really matters to me too much. I think 2 to 3 gun generally adds a bit more consistency to the game, which is something I've always liked. A lot of it comes down to utility usage, which hasn't been there as much recently because we don't have the pick 10 system anymore, so you're not really ever making too many trade-offs, and that's something I really don't like about the recent years of COD because pretty much every player in the lobby is running around with flak tack so it's hard to get good value out of your utility, and utility was so important in Black Ops 2, and you kind of had a meta with it where you would have the EMPs to take out the trophies, so people would be pulling out, I forgot what perk it was, to make it so like the EMPs didn't really affect them, and then the teams would throw out a switch from EMPs to stuns to stun the people, and then they would have to switch from whatever perk it was to tac mask, and you kind of had like a really good balanced meta with the tacticals then, and there was a lot of checks and balances, but we don't really have that this year or in recent years even.
Yo, Jake, so reppin', assistant coach, lead analyst, director of esports operations, the guy with the most titles at the company, said if Black Ops 2 was played today, it would not be played with a traditional anchor. That's kind of like an interesting take, because, I mean, if you're thinking of Black Ops 2 today, you don't have, like, all the crazy, creepy slides. You don't have, stuff like that. Do you think, kind of based on like what you were saying with the types of guns that helped that style of play, do you think people would just be so cracked nowadays that they just could? Is it that they feel like they can run around and eliminate anybody, or is it like truly like not advantageous positionally? Do you think? Like, what do you think of Jake's take, basically?
I mean, it's probably right, just due to how the net code and the tick rate and everything like that is this day. That's also a big reason why things are also how they are. I think the connection back then and how a lot of things registered was a lot more shoddy. Even on LAN, you're not going to get as good of hardware in the systems or anything like that. So I think now with like the higher end systems and kind of just how COD's developed, yeah, I think to a good extent it would kind of play like that. But it's super hard to tell.
Brian, is this true? Is this Stocksman in the YouTube chat? Is that you? That's what Jake's calling out right now in the chat. Is that you? There's no way. No, it is. Oh, I see. I was wearing a hat. Okay, I thought the Stocksman guy was you, and you were putting in your own. Okay.
Stocksman is Lamar's cousin.
Okay, so for those listening, there's a guy named Stocksman in the YouTube chat, and he goes, "Wow, the guy on the right is so handsome. How does his hair curl perfectly at the end? Zeus himself must be his father. Word is Brian shares barbers with Drake." And then I saw Jake's comment, which Brian did not just pull up to the chat from the Scrim account. And for some reason, I thought he meant the Stocksman because they were gassing up Brian, but really it was just you commented about it. Sorry, down a whole rabbit hole. Shout out to the chat. Shout out to everybody. Shout out to the RØKKR Scrims channel. There's no uploads there, right? Unless.
No, I don't upload. It's just where I, stream our scrims.
Yo, hit me with the link. Come on, I won't share with nobody. I won't tell anybody. So how does it? Okay, I guess kind of like an obvious question to some, but I'd love to know like practice routines going up to whether it's a major event and now especially on LAN. You mentioned you didn't know that if you're playing New York subliners until Sunday night. So at what point do you like stop playing the teams that you know you're about to play at a major event or that you think you might play at a major event? And how do you kind of adjust the practice schedules to that?
I mean, going into a major, you can't really plan around anything until the pools are set. So with the case of New York, like we could have scrimmed them on Saturday. I don't remember when the last time we scrimmed them was. I think we actually did warm them up Saturday. I could be tripping on that one, but we very well could have played them Saturday or Sunday to even like warm them up, and then at that point, once we know they're in our pool, then okay, we're done. We're done at that point.
So it's once you know, it's once you've like solidified it. When you're in the group stages and you know who's in your group, do you ever not scrim the people in your group?
Yeah,
you scrim the other group.
We generally just don't play teams in our group or scrim teams in our group until we actually play our match against them. Like if we play a team during the third week, we might play them early on in the first week of matches, but that's pretty much it. We'll usually wait until we play a team in our group until we start scrimming them after, or we'll just play teams in the other group. And that's kind of how it works for most teams.
Jake in the chat, aka Reppin, aka the unverified king himself. Brian, would COD Ghost have been elite if there was Hardpoint? I feel like COD Ghost was elite.
COD Ghost was a good game. Search and Destroy. Search was great in that game for sure.
Bro.
However, we were playing Blitz and Dom, and therefore
the
game was a little ass, even though I wasn't too bad at it.
I still feel pain thinking about Octane Dom.
Still had my favorite gun ever, though.
Hey, look at that! Wait,
I hope it's not the
blanking on
Vector.
the name.
No,
What is that? M4?
The Remington.
No.
The Remington was the Remington was actually fun to use.
The Remington
that gun was
nasty.
elite.
I thought I wouldn't say COD Ghost was elite, but if we're looking at like the tiers, I would put it in like an A tier under S. Like she's pretty cool. I love Free For All and I love Search and Destroy, and that was all I played on COD Ghost, and it was amazing.
Search and Destroy was definitely top tier in that game, and the Search and Destroy scene, just being able to play Wager Chows all the time. That's when they first came out as well. So everyone was kind of just playing the Wager matches, and they were huge back then.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It's kind of crazy. Like now that the S&D scene has taken a turn for the worst, especially now with the move to PC. It's kind of sad to see, but hey, we'll still toss up some sick searches on LAN. I hope. Kind of on a Search and Destroy related question. So with Major Maniac coming back onto the lineup, me and a lot of other RØKKR fans fell victim to the we're gonna be nasty at Search now. Major Maniac is back. Let's go. And then we weren't really right away. And I guess my question for you is like, is that because when you decide, okay, Major Maniac's coming back in, he's coming back in the lineup, do you like try to nail down a ton of practice on hardpoint and control? Not to like imply that you don't practice Search when you get a new member of your team, but like what was the focus of like, okay, we need to get this tuned up and ready for the next stage once you do Major Maniacs coming back in?
I mean, the practice wasn't anything out of the norm. I mean, first scrim every day was, just strictly respawns, and second scrim every day we usually play like a best of 11 challenge, so we're kind of getting our S&D practice in those. And it's hard bringing in a new player to get good at S&D immediately. I feel like if you're just instantly good, bringing in someone, it kind of lost my train of thought. But if you instantly bring someone in and get good at S&D, just at the snap of a finger, I feel like that's just a complete anomaly. So that game mode definitely takes the most time, and I would say it's probably not the easiest to progress in, but it's definitely one where it can be very lackluster at one point and great at the next. So we're getting there. We had to change a lot of strats immediately, bringing Mike in since he likes playing on SMG a lot, and we're just still trying a bunch of things out. A lot of our scrims, even leading up to that first week when we played Optic and stuff, we're looking really good S&D wise. And then when we started getting into some of these matches, things just didn't really translate over from practice. It's a lot of teams just don't play similar at all. So I feel like once we get more match reps in for S&D, I think it'll really start to flush out a bit.
But you were able to take a super important map 5 round 11 against LA Thieves to put you in the winner's bracket. So that had to make you feel at least a little bit good going into this LAN.
Yeah, winning the round 11 was definitely big. And being able to take round 11 too is just really good for the morale of the team. Just being able to close out one of those really tense scenarios.
And on offense.
Yeah, and on offense as well, because we were also in that situation on Miami where, at the major for top 3, where we were tied in kills, it came down to a coin flip. We got offense that round 11. Obviously, we all know how that one went. Things got a little unfortunate. So being able to take a map like Miami, especially on offense, round 11 is a big confidence boost for the team, and kind of lets us know that we're capable of pulling any round out.
Heck yeah, you guys are. I'm a believer. I think you're definitely right in saying that Search and Destroy is something that you can kind of progress at as a team pretty decently. It's not easy, obviously, because it's like you mentioned, it's a little bit more difficult to practice. But I do think it's really promising that Major Maniac comes back on the squad. Hardpoint, there's still some troublesome maps there or moments that it's like, man, like one thing goes different, we're all right. But we have been closing out a lot more hardpoints recently. The controls looking chef's kiss, dude. You mentioned I think it's like 4-1 in the stage. Knock on wood, no jinx before LAN, but the controls looking pretty good. So if the Search and Destroy can get, at least close to what it was like in the beginning of the year, I think, RØKKR's kind of primed for a big time like uptick at the time that you need it the most. And I mean, even like it's kind of crazy just how this league goes, that round 11 Search and Destroy, going all out towards A on Miami. That led to, a 20-point difference basically between us and LA Thieves. We are currently placed number 7th in the standings, 10 points behind LA Thieves. Because of that win, LA Thieves is starting in the lower bracket of the event. I shouldn't say because of that win, because they did ultimately end up falling to
they did lose again,
which caused that. Yeah, so they're not in a good spot. I mean, we're not either. We're still in 7th, right? But going into the major, just kind of like
them not being in a good spot is what we like to see, though.
Yep.
It's a good time of year for us for them to not be in a good spot.
Yeah, we're kind of out here preying on their downfall.
Yeah, no shade to LA Thieves, but woo, man.
Bro, they know it. They scrim in our team speak all the time. It's kind of us two in there, and we talk all the time. And we're like, yo, we're kind of preying on your downfall right now. Same as you guys.
What are you thinking, like, with banter like that, and just obviously everyone's super aware like of all the teams and where they're all at. What are you most looking forward to being back on LAN? Obviously, with spectators, there's probably not going to be as many like hype, trash talky moments, but like, what are you most looking forward to other than it being the most even keeled and competitive, format? What makes you just super stoked about LAN?
I mean, as you said, the consistency of it is definitely awesome, but it's kind of just a whole different environment, even without a crowd. It's similar to how the studio was when we were over in Columbus for the old Pro League days, where a lot of those matches we played, without a crowd. Just having that environment where you're there on a stage, the lights are on you, the cameras are in your face. It's a lot more personal, and it just adds a layer of intensity to everything, even without the crowd yelling at you, going green wall the entire time.
Yeah, there's no more, just being in your bedroom or all kind of crammed into a little room together. You're there, the lights are on, it's crazy. I, for one, absolutely can't wait for Crim 6 versus Formal, Optic versus Empire. I think it's a round 1 matchup.
It is. It is
what
right
did we
before
do
our match.
What did we do to deserve that? Wait, their match is before ours on Thursday?
Yeah, ours is the last match on Thursday. They play at 5.
We're about to be, that viewership is about to be nice. Let's go. Holy cow. Oh man, what do you kind of make of like the Empire situation? Definitely won't ask you to like, comment on their downfall. I mean, they were in 2nd place. Made the roster change for Hook there, and I just like, I don't know. I'm curious to see like what more comes out about that, because I know Hook made his video and just kind of explaining his side of things. But as you guys know, I mean, there's always, what's the dumb saying? It's like
two sides every coin, 2 sides every story is the simplistic. way to describe it.
But there's actually 3, because then there's the truth. And so, like, we gotta try to find the third in between there. And I know Krim was mentioning, like, he's gonna make, like, a video after careful consideration, and he wants his side of the story out here. We got the tweets here. He said, I was willing to take the flack from everyone if the other option was explaining our decision in detail and potentially ruining Kyler's chances, I'm sorry if I said his name wrong, of getting on another CDL team. But there comes a point where you need to stick up for yourself and for the sake of the team upon seeking advice from people I respect in the game community, PR, and legal entities, which, like, damn, dude, what's he about to say? I will be addressing the situation, or the decision, we've made regarding roster changes with Hook sometime next week after the major. So, like, what do you make of, like, storylines like this going into the major? Do you think there's, like, like real bad blood here? Is it like just, I don't know, him wanting to defend his honor a little bit? I mean, it's always tough when you see one side of the story get out, and then people
Oh
start
yeah,
making assumptions.
100%. Because as soon as like one person comes out about something, everyone's immediately on their side until the other person says anything. I feel like you rarely have a case where someone will come out about like anything where someone comes out, presents their side, and someone's like, well, we got to hear both sides first. It just doesn't really happen like that on the internet. There's kind of a mob mentality where everyone will just instantly hop on the one side, and then the other person is kind of pressured to come out and state their claim, or all the backlash just continues to be on them. So I mean, kind of felt necessary for Krim to say something. I like how he didn't just instantly go and make a response video. It's taking his time to do it.
Yeah, it's better that he's not just super emotional and saying, like, seems like he's thinking out his response quite a lot, which could be really interesting. I'll definitely be tuning in, not only to watch Crim6 and Formal mud wrestle on LAN. Just kidding, they're gonna be playing COD, and then the follow up next week. I guess I'll kind of ask like your POV too. Like, what are you most looking forward to LAN? Saints looking forward to consistency. I'm looking forward to Formal and Crim arm wrestling. What are you looking most forward to with LAN?
Yeah, I think going into LAN, the biggest thing for me is I just want to see like who's that squad that really goes toe to toe with Atlanta, because I feel like right now there were a few, and with Asim not being there, I feel like that takes one of them potentially out. I'm really excited. I think Minnesota actually now wins that first matchup against New York. And with how close the last matchup was against Atlanta, I'm interested to see how that second round matchup goes. But there's so many different storylines that goes into this weekend. Like, I think Optic probably also wins over Dallas, and that sets up a potential Optic versus Toronto. And if it was any other stage and, they're playing from their home setups or whatever, most of the time you probably figure that, okay, Toronto's probably going to win that matchup, but they're very youthful. You have Insight, who's just coming into a fold, not to mention where this LAN is taking place is pretty close to where Optic is. So Toronto has to get on a plane and fly there and live out of an apartment and stuff. So there are so many other dynamics that goes into it. I'm really interested to see, like, I feel like we know what we're going to get out of Atlanta. I feel like we know what we've gotten from Simp and Abizi from the very first time they stepped into competitive Call of Duty with eUnited. We just knew who they were. So in this LAN, I feel like Atlanta's that one team that's kind of maybe in a league of their own. And I want to see like who makes their way through all of those potential other teams that are there in like 2 through 6, 2 through 7, somewhere in there, and who's really going to give them a challenge. Because at this point in time, I felt like New York, Toronto, maybe Optic is maybe like the top 4 in the league. So who's going to be the squad that steps up? And now there's so many unknowns with Toronto, and New York's not going to be at full strength. So I just want to see somebody give them a good game.
I think that, I don't know, man. I wonder, Jake in the chat, if Crim and Formal were to box, who would win?
I'm going with Crim for sure.
I'm going Crim, yeah.
For boxing, me too. I think Crim would win a boxing match, but Formal would win a roast battle for sure. I would pay pay-per-view dollars, hop on the bandwagon CDL. Let's see some boxing. That would actually be kind of crazy. Yo, imagine like in a year 3 down the line, there's like a celebrity boxing match between. Oh no, it couldn't be players though, because then they could get injured before they play. Never mind. Don't let me run CDL events, because I will for sure make a boxing match a thing. I'm joking, but I mean, shoot, maybe that's what'll be on LAN this week. You never know. You never know. Hey, people have been pent up, man. It's been like a year and a half since the first, or since the last like real LAN event. So, I guess, Brent, I would love to know like your kind of take on what IKON's saying. Like, obviously, FaZe is looking really good. Toronto looks really good, and we all know like FaZe is for sure more than a capable LAN team. But based on how we just matched up against them for the first time this year, this past weekend, and man, it was close. Like, arguably that par point could have and should have been ours. It's just so hard to stave off 3 waves of FaZe people coming from green. Like, it was crazy. But do you feel like on LAN is where you guys could potentially make that like next step, or what do you think needs to happen for whether it's us, RØKKR, or another team to kind of show up and beat FaZe?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting to see, if any teams kind of fold on LAN. Some of these players that all their experience in the pro league have just been online, so I'm really curious to see how a lot of people will perform at this first event. But I do think teams will be able to keep up a lot more as things go to LAN. I mean, if you even look at our team last year, when we matched up versus FaZe on LAN, we were incredibly good against them, and then once it got to online, we felt like we couldn't do anything. So I want to see. It's going to be really, really, really interesting to see if anything changes. I feel like it'd be kind of anticlimactic, if everything looks exactly the same, where all the same teams are winning, by the same map counts, the same results. But I expect quite a few upsets this major.
I don't know. So I don't know how much you want to go into this, but I'll just kind of just talk about something that I noticed throughout this stage. Is it seemed like in a lot of RØKKR matches, we started to see, I don't know if it was, I mean, I'm sure it was on purpose, but we started to see like an expanding map pool. And that especially holds true for me when it comes to control, because the story throughout the first three stages has always been, okay, let's play that map 3 raid control. And if we're down 0-2, then that can be our swing mode. Or if we're up, or if it's 1-1, then we can go up 2-1 or whatever. And it seems like a lot of people started to veto raid control against you guys. So then Garrison came into the fold, and we all know how Garrison has gone throughout this stage. It seems like, okay, you can't veto both of them. So now we have like a map 3 that's kind of in our favor. And we've also kind of see that in Hardpoint. Like we've seen a little bit more Garrison Hardpoint, even though haven't necessarily gotten W's out of that map. It just seems like before this stage, it was a lot of like when we would get the map pools in for the co-streams and stuff. Okay, this is pretty similar. We kind of know like how this is going to go. And then throughout this stage, started to be some curveballs thrown in. And was that purposeful? And now do you feel like you have a little bit more leeway with, okay, take your pick. What do you want to veto? Because we feel comfortable in other areas also.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of tried judging things off our practices initially, going on this roster, but as we were seeing going into some of the matches, some things just didn't really translate over, how we were practicing them every day. So we kind of got to a point like later in the stage where like, we're gonna play how we're gonna play. We're gonna test out maps, even though these wins are super important to us. We're gonna try and get, as many maps in that we feel comfortable on into our series, and kind of just see, how we play them come match time. So I think we got a decent amount of maps in before the major, but we're really gonna have to pull some things out of our back pocket if we really, want to make a run at this major. But I think our map set's in a pretty good spot right now. It's just a matter of, with control, we feel really good about our control. We could just go and auto veto checkmate, every single time if we wanted to, and have 2 maps that we're very, very strong on. Not saying that's our plan, because things could change, and we're feeling really good about some certain things right now. But we like where our control's at for sure. Hardpoint is a matter of finding 2 maps that we can reliably pick and like win confidently. I think if you look at all the best hardpoint teams, they have 2 maps that they have very good records on. So if one team vetoes one, they kind of go and pick the other. So finding a map that we're comfortable with, 2 maps that we're super comfortable with picking consistently is our main focus on hardpoint right now. That's where we're trying to test all the maps out in official match settings. And yeah, then S&D, it's a pretty similar ballpark where we want to find out where we're the most consistent on, be able to use that as our picks, and then find other maps that we feel good letting other teams pick.
How much of like a sweat fest do you and Jake go through when you're looking at map vetoes and percentages, or you're about to match up with our team? You go into the veto process. Is it like kind of status quo? You kind of already know what the other team's going to say, you know what you're going to say, or is it like...
It's pretty easy to figure out what the other team's doing. It's not too complex. I mean, we'll know what we're playing generally the night before. I mean, there's occasionally a curveball or 2 every time, but we'll know, what they're going to pick or what their secondary pick's going to be. And we have all our stuff set out the night before. I'll kind of get on a call with the guys and be like, yo, this is the plan. This is what we plan on playing. These are what they're going to veto. This is what their records are. Do you guys feel comfortable playing this? and then once we kind of have the map set laid out, we'll get the thumbs up from everyone, and then just goes at like a snap of a thumb the next day because we already have it all planned out.
Nice. So you kind of like, I mean, how much does the coin flip matter? I remember like last year, I can't remember the percentage.
It's not big this year.
Why is that? Is it because the sides are more balanced in this Call of Duty?
Yeah, hardpoint isn't nearly as one-sided. I was actually thinking about this earlier because I had a hunch something like this was going to come up on the show. But last year with the whole Team A, Team B scenario, Team A was at a huge advantage because in hardpoint, I think the only two reasonably balanced maps in terms of side start were Gunrunner, which we sucked at, so we kind of just had to get rid of it every series for the most part, and Azure Cave. So if you were Team A, you could just veto one of the two, you could veto one of the two, pick the other one, and then you kind of force the other team into picking, like a super one-sided map for the game for where, they were kind of forced into a position where they have to pick like a Hackney Yard or St. Petro, especially. If you were Team B, you were almost forced into vetoing Petro just to get out of the mix, so it wasn't one of the options you could pick.
Dang, so definitely like a distinct advantage and disadvantage there to like maneuvering the coin flips of you. So now if you get heads or tails this year, you're like, okay, whatever, like it's chill.
Yeah, things are just a lot more balanced. Even when you're starting on the bad side of the map, it's not the greatest for some of them, but you still very well have a chance to win without being extremely punished, right from the get-go, where you feel like you're in a spot that's just completely unwinnable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Icon, your face is frozen. Are you still here? And he's gone. No, there he is. Yeah,
I hear you, but right. I don't know why my face is frozen.
We'll reassess. We'll figure it out. Maybe your camera lost the coin flip and you got Team B or something. Gosh, I'm trying to think. I guess I would love to know. Obviously, we've had a few different iterations of the roster this year. And I do think like it's really important to point out that every player on the team, I think, has had amazing moments throughout the season. But it's been really a treat to watch Standy come on board in the way that he did. He's my very biased rookie of the year. I know Insight on Toronto has been lights out, but I'm a Standy stan. I can't wait for Landy. I just would love to know like your kind of take on Standy, how he's been this year for the roster, and then how do you think like he's going to do on LAN? Obviously, he's played in amateur events on LAN before, but I don't think he's ever been on like a big, bright, shiny stage. So just would love your take there on him.
Yeah, that kid definitely has a lot of confidence and really enjoys playing Call of Duty. So I think he'll definitely be fine on LAN. I mean, he's going to come out with the confidence because he definitely exudes it. So I'm not really too worried about him. The rest of the guys on the team have more than enough experience. Dylan, Preston, and Mike and Black Ops 4 have kind of all played at the highest level. They've played in grand finals. They know how it is, and they're just really excited to get back on that stage.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I don't know. I know we have the guys all playing from the same room, down in Dallas on game days, but it's just way different on LAN. I'm so excited from a content angle, there's more room to film because that room's kind of, it's working, but it's a little cramped. So I just, hopefully we'll have more space. We get some great shots of the guys. I'm super, super stoked on it. Yeah, I guess we can start looking at, we could do some predictions here. Hopefully Icon, are you still here verbally? Let's go. Oh, right on, right on. All right, I'm not stream. Can you hear Icon? Yay or nay? Give me a quick yay or nay. We can just kind of start looking at the matches ahead. I'm gonna do some predictions. I don't know, Saint, if you catch this from the RØKKR Twitter once in a while, but we've actually been tracking all of. They're actually going to be tracking all of the podcast predictions all year, and I'm currently just barely behind Icon. It's kind of by a lot, actually. So I'm trying to catch up. I've been catching up, but it's gonna come down to the wire. Because I'm not sure where IKON went exactly. We're working on getting him back. It looks like you guys can't hear him, but nonetheless, we can take a look at the bracket and then maybe do some predictions here at the end. Because, like I said, I'm trying to catch up in points and standings, and I don't know. We might do like some kind of goofy WWE style belt for the prediction winner for the season. You know, my bookshelf will look really cool with that. I mean, I guess, yeah, let's look at these. So, say that I know it's tough to like predict your own match. And if you don't prefer to say map count or whatever, you can just say who you think might win the first match, which is New York Subliners versus RØKKR.
The first match is going to be a bit of a shock, but I feel like we're going to win it. I don't really like predicting map count for a series, but I feel good about it. You know, can't really look too much in New York, so we just got to go out and take a map by map player game, and not really worry about what they're doing since they're playing with a stand-in.
Man, I'm about to seem like a complete psychopath, and especially because like it's weird to predict in front of the coach, right? But I really do. I'm a homer. I always predict RØKKR to win, and I do predict the map count. Because we do go like our prediction. We get points if we get the map count correct.
Go ahead. Throw out whatever map count you think.
I don't know, man. Decimate's not going to be able to play. Well, I shouldn't say he's not going to be able to, but Decimate, to your point earlier, does not play the same type of role that Asim does. He's a very good player, but I don't know if he's going to be able to push the pace like Asim does for that team.
Here's the thing, though. Them having a stand-in for this is completely different than, you know, LAT making that roster change, you know, when we went into that match against them. Because LAT, that whole change, it's, you know, it's players coming back into a roster where they're being starters, where, you know, they kind of have to prove themselves toward the tail end of the season. You know, they're in a spot right now, too, where they're fighting with us and Florida for a spot in winners bracket at champs. You know, they're not safe, and, you know, their spots on the team aren't safe. They could very well rotate back someone back into the starting roster, so there's a lot of pressure on those players to perform and that team to perform as a whole. Meanwhile, this match versus New York, them playing with a fill-in here, they're already locked in for champs 100%. They have a pretty, you know, good buffer as well, being the number 2 seed. All 3 players that are on that starting roster are playing with absolutely nothing to lose. And then they have a player who's coming in with everything to prove, and that could be a really scary combination.
Yo, I was feeling like I was going to say a 3-0, but you just freaked me out. RØKKR 3-2. Let's go, baby. We still will take that, I think. I think we got what it takes. Yo, Jake in the chat, subliners, schmubliners, RØKKR in 3. That is Jacob saying that, not me. But I can't help but co-sign there. It's going to be really interesting to see the first match back on LAN Force. I'm so stoked. And now, like I mentioned earlier, Optic Chicago versus Dallas Empire. I want Crimsix and Formal to not get in a physical altercation where they hurt each other, but I want them to make eye contact and yell and like get hype. It's probably not going to happen. It's probably going to be a boring series, but it's going to be fun. I don't know. I'm going to sideways predict this, man. I want Optic to win. I want to see the Twitter after the match regardless. And I think it's possible that Optic could, I want to say 3-1, but it'll probably be a 3-2. I don't know. Dallas is pretty good at making things go the distance. Saints, I'd love to know your thoughts on Optic versus Empire.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone wants to see a Game 5 for this one. That would just be incredible for the fans. I kind of feel like it's going to go the distance as well because you never know what you're getting at Optic. They can look extremely dominant, come out, you know, win a bunch of maps convincingly, or they can look a bit shaky. It can go Game 5. I feel like it is going Game 5 for sure. That's my prediction on that one, because a lot of Dallas' series too, since they brought in Reese, have gone Game 5, so they kind of have that experience, and I think they've been looking a lot better with him. I think he's found a lot more comfort, and throughout this stage, they, you know, their only losses were a 3-0 or a 3-0 against Toronto, and then they won Game 5 versus New York. Which is nothing to, you know, roll your eyes at. They beat Florida, who's looks very good. Their London series was a bit closer than they would have wanted it, and then I think they also had a pretty close series versus LAG as well. So I want to lean toward Optic Game 5, and, you know, hope they can conquer some of those demons, because I know they've had quite a few Game 5 losses. at some of these majors, to us, to Toronto, and I feel like they might have had like another one or two as well. So I want to see Optic take that one game 5, but I could definitely see it going either way.
I feel that. IKON, can you hear and see us?
I'm
We
here.
see you. I think we hear you as well, Chet. Give us the final verdict. We could just kind of quickly go through. We're only going to predict the matches that we know are going to happen. We're not going to like predict far ahead in advance. IKON, real quick, because I want to be cognizant of Brian's time here. But what do you think? New York Subliners versus RØKKR, Optic versus Empire. Are you able to give me like a quick take prediction, or would you prefer to take some time and copy my homework? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I didn't hear what you said, so that option is not
perfect.
there. So yeah, I think before Asim ended up not being able to make it to the LAN, I thought New York was probably the one squad that could have challenged Atlanta, especially with Clay being on LAN. But without him, I think that really takes a lot away from what they like to do. So I actually think we win this one. I think we probably lose the search, but I think we're going to be too much in the respawn. So I think both hard points and the control go our way. So I think we win that one 3-1. And then when it comes to Optic versus Dallas, I think that this is a super close series. I think when you look across the board, you have players on both sides, of course, T2P, who are really well versed when it comes to being on LAN and just being in the heat of the moment. You can say the same thing for Crim6. Obviously, I don't think the moment is going to be too large for either of them. But I do think there's a bit of an advantage definitely at the flex position. I feel like we haven't gotten the same Illy this year that we got last year. You look across the board, all 3 modes, he's just not performing the same that he was. He is a little bit better now that he is no longer running an SMG, but still, you need him to be playing super well. And I feel like Dashy is a player that absolutely has the ability to be the best player in that matchup. So I actually think Optic win this one. I don't have a ton of confidence in Optic if it goes to map 5. So I'm going to say 3-1, very similar to our matchup. I just think that Optic has a bigger advantage when it comes to the respawns. Probably lose the S&D, but if it goes map 5, I think Dallas wins, but I'm going to say 3-1 Optic there.
You just predicted twice, man. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, 3-1 Optic. That sounds legit. All right, we could kind of just rapid fire through the lower bracket teams, and it's not because they're the lower bracket teams. It's because we're strapped for time, ladies and gentlemen. I got LA Thieves 3-1ing Los Angeles Gorillas, but I'm curious, like, do they make another roster change before LAN? Do they make a roster change immediately if they lose, or even if they beat LA Girls? I'm not sure. I'm expecting it at this point just because of all the movement they've had this weekend. But yeah, I think LA Thieves 3-1 over the Gorillas. Brian, who do you got?
This one's my upset series. I have LAG taking it 3-2.
Oh, silly. Justin, silly, Fargo, Assault, Chain, Dad Apathy. You think they're just gonna turn up on LAN? They're gonna rise to the occasion?
Yeah, I'm not gonna go into too much detail about my prediction, but also Thieves not doing well is great for us. So just gonna manifest that one a little bit.
Yo, manifest destiny that. Yo, I thought you had like insider information, like scrims and whatnot. But either way, yeah, that's.
I mean, I could, but
we don't know. We have no idea here. We don't see any evil here. Can I change my prediction based on what? No, just kidding. I do think Thieves will take it 3-1, but I mean, we saw Assault, Silly on LAN last year. They're freak bees. IKON, who you got for this series?
Actually, yeah. When Brian said he's taking LAG here, I was looking. I was like, what is he come like? They won 3 maps throughout the entirety of Stage 4 group play. I couldn't figure out a way that they would come away with that victory. But now it all makes sense. But yeah, when I look at this matchup, I think this is probably going to be a really easy match for LA Thieves. I'll say 3-0. I feel like having Hugh, Kenny, Slasher back on LAN, kind of in an environment they're comfortable with. Of course, you can say the same exact thing about Assault and about Silly and those guys, Apathy, of course. It's not like they're a stranger to being on LAN. I just feel like what we've seen out of LA Thieves recently in their performances throughout Stage 4, just feel like they're playing a little bit better right now. And I think as they go throughout the Stage 4 major and into Stage 5, I think they probably just continue to get better. I'm going to go 3-0.
Rock and roll. Brett Diamond in the chat. Wow. The pleasure is ours to have you here, Brett Diamond. Anyone taking those 2001 to 1 odds on LAG winning it all?
Nope.
No. I will not. Yo, what kind of odds you got for RØKKR? I'll bet. All right. We got London Royal Ravens versus Seattle Surge. God, I just feel bad for both of these teams. Surge, I feel like I always say it every episode, so I won't go too far into it. They're better than their record. They play so many heaters, so many close maps, but they just can never pull it out. London Royal Ravens, they were looking pretty good, at the end of the last stage, and then they changed out 2 people on their roster, which I thought was super interesting, and it does not seem like that paid off whatsoever. But hey, you never know. You turn up to LAN, things could be different. Brian, I'm gonna let you say your thoughts before I predict this time. That might help me out. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, Seattle have always looked relatively consistent. Even when they're losing, they're still winning maps or taking series the distance a lot of the time. London, I haven't seen too much out of them this stage since they switched up their rosters, so I'm going to go Seattle on this one. Because Seattle, even, those are some very accomplished players. I feel like they kind of always talk about how, once it gets back to LAN, they're going to start hitting form. So I'm going to go Seattle. I'm going to say 3-1.
Nice. Icon, who you got?
Yeah, this is one that's really tough to put my finger on just because you don't really know what Seattle you're going to get. And of course, that is based off of what they did online in group play. Like they come out, they win a map 5 against Optic, and then they come back in their next match, they lose to Paris. Even though Paris is looking quite a bit better over the last couple weeks. And when it comes to London, the only victory that they got was the very last matchup of the stage when they played LAG. I feel like what Paris is doing as of late and how much they're improving is because, they bring Zaptius aboard and they make those changes. I just wish that London would have stayed with that roster because I felt like we kept saying stage after stage, what's going on with London, and then all of a sudden they have a core 4 that are playing well. They ended up knocking us out of the last major with that really impressive victory, and then they make a move, and just seems like they're not quite where they were before, and I'm not sure that's going to work out. It might, who knows, it's really too early to tell, but I'm going to go with Seattle here. I think that especially being back on LAN with Gunless and Octane and Pristini, I just feel like it's an environment that they're used to. I don't think the moment will be too big for them, and I'll be interested to see how much of a run they can make. I'm going to take Seattle here. I'm going to go 3-2 map 5.
Yeah, it's hard to predict. I think if this was online, I would probably predict London, but I think the event being back on LAN, I've seen the tweets that Octane, and I mean every pro's been tweeting, I'm so excited to get back on LAN, but like Octane on LAN is just horrific in a good way, but not for the London Royal Ravens. So I got Seattle Surge 3-1 versus London. If it was online, I actually might try to vote for London here, but whew, hey, we're only going to predict the matches that we know are going to happen. We will be putting out our prediction graphics over the Major 4 weekend. Yo, Inez in the chat, producer Shannon, don't forget to like the video, y'all. That's the only way I get points. Let's go. Everybody like the video for Shannon, producer Shannon. Yo, by the way, guys, producer Shannon making her on-screen debut with me this weekend for the co-stream. Kingdom may even be joining us. We'll see if his schedule allows it, but for sure, Shannon and I will be your hostesses with the mostest. We're going to watch the match, break it down, and just get nerd hype for RØKKR back on LAN. Saint, I really, really appreciate your time today. I know we went a few minutes over. Just really appreciate you coming on again.
All good.
I guess I got one more question for you before you leave. What is it like when you're in Dallas, you share an apartment with my Rookie of the Year, Standy? What is Eli like? What's the weirdest quirk he has? Does he leave anything weird in the fridge? What does he do like as a roommate where you're like, okay, guy?
Yeah, he's in his room gaming a lot, so I don't see him, I don't see him a crazy amount. He could definitely do dishes a little bit more, take out the trash every now and then. Outside of that, he's not a bad kid though.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, he's growing. Hey, he was just tweeting about cooking yesterday, and that's pretty big.
Yeah,
for, a 20-year-old kid.
He threw some ground beef in a pan, and that's all he cooked.
Wait, is that literally all he ate?
that
was
was
like
all-
a tortilla
yeah.
and meat?
No, there was
tortilla?
there was no tortilla
Just
or anything with it. It was
literally
just
ate meat.
It was just plain ground beef, correct?
Hashtag gains. All right. Well, shout out to Standy. I'm ready for Landy. I'm ready for Landtatch. I'm ready for Priest Land. I can't remember all the nicknames I made. Major Laniac. I'm ready for Land this weekend, baby. I hope you guys all are too. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Thank you again, Brian, for coming on. Icon, as always. Big shout out to Kingdom Soldier. Couldn't be on the show tonight due to technical difficulties. He's AFK, and we tried doing it with an iPad, but it was ugly. So anyway, we'll see you guys for the co-stream 6:30 Central on Thursday for the NYSL match. See you then. Have a good night.